You react with this very special and sweet emotion that you have. I am angry. I'm angry out of my mind.
We'll keep trying at least a little bit until you're ready. Promise me.
The courtroom was filled wall to wall, but you could have heard a pin drop, and whispers, and shuffling. Silence. The air was thick enough with tension that it stuck to your skin. You could almost feel it pushing into your chest. In the front row, TLC producers sat stiffly, their pens suspended midair above notebooks. Behind them, Brown family members shifted awkwardly in their seats. Some refused to look her in the eye at all, while others looked blankly ahead as if anticipating a collision. Christine Brown stood up slowly. The shriek of her chair on the floor seemed louder than it ought to have been. She smoothed the front of her dark green blouse, not vanity, but as if securing armor before facing battle. Her face was serene, but her hands shook at her hips. It wasn't fear, it was rage. Years of it, hidden beneath decades of smothered smiles, stilled sobs, and shushed its okays that were never actually okay. Standing before the judge, she started. "Your Honor," she continued, her voice low and trembling, nearly delicate. "I invested in a group grocery fund for over 10 years. I thought it was for all of us, for all the wives, all the children, all of our families. That's what I was told. That's what I believed." She waited. A few of them leaned forward. Christine gulped hard. When she resumed, her voice cut through the courtroom like a lash, louder, harder, cracking out the words. "But it was a lie." The room erupted into whispers. The defense table. Robyn's mouth opened, but nothing emerged. She clutched a tissue in her lap and blinked rapidly. Behind her, Cody sat rigid, arms crossed, eyes fixed blankly ahead. As if none of it concerned him. As if the explosion in front of him wasn't a consequence of his own silence. Christine stood up to address the jury. "I fed Robyn's family," she said, voice escalating, "while my children ate scraps." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. "That wasn't sisterhood," she said firmly, years of swallowed frustration unraveling in her voice. "That was betrayal. And I'm standing here today because no one else did. Not in our homes. Not on our show. Not in this so-called family." The judge raised his eyebrows but remained silent, letting her speak. This wasn't mere testimony. It was a reckoning. Christine moved over to her bag and retrieved a crumpled, worn piece of paper. The wrinkles seemed indelible, as though it had been folded and refolded 100 times. "This," she said, "is the original family compact. The one that we all signed. The one that obligated us to contribute money for groceries, equal to each other, split 50/50, food for everybody and the kids. I thought that was it. I did it. I raised my children with it in mind, because I thought we were all doing it." Her voice broke but then grew cold. "But sooner or later I discovered only me was doing the sharing." Across the table, Robyn whispered to her attorney. But the lawyer remained silent. She was too engrossed with Christine, acutely sensing the energy building in that moment. Christine's lawyer, seated serene in a blue suit, didn't cut in. She allowed Christine to have her time. "I recall one evening," Christine continued quietly. "My daughter Isabel was sobbing. We had eggs and peanut butter in the fridge. That's all. Called Robyn. Informed her we were low. Asked if we could utilize part of the household fund." She looked straight at the jury, her jaw clenched. You know what she said to me? She'd placed the monthly order and couldn't possibly give me anything. Her children were finicky eaters. Someone in the courtroom whispered. "Wow." Christine massaged her forehead. "But I had paid my share 2 days before. My money was in. My children were to be included in that order. Or so I thought." She caught her breath. "That's when I began keeping records." Christine made her way slowly to the plaintiff's table, hoisting a box full of binders, heavy with the weight of documents. She set them down on the stand. 10 years worth, she declared. "Bank statements, grocery orders, deposit dates, delivery slips. And the scheme remains the same, repeating itself. My money paid for Robyn's groceries. My children starved. The figures never equaled. The groceries never arrived." Robyn cracked finally. "I didn't do anything wrong," she snapped. "I have younger kids. They have special needs." Christine's just. The judge raised a hand. "You'll have your time, Ms. Brown. Please wait." Christine didn't even blink. "You always claimed we required Robyn," she said, not even glancing over at her. "But we required someone as well. I had 6 children under one roof and no men at the table, any of them. You had Cody on your couch each and every night, and a pantry stacked with fresh fruit, meat, the works." Tears began to collect in her eyes but did not fall. "My children grew up believing we were poor," she said softly, "but in fact, she was neglected. While I was being informed we were sharing, courtroom hallway cameras recorded the moment. TLC producers later confirmed they'd never heard Christine talk so boldly. Straightening her shoulders, Christine spoke to the judge for a third time. This isn't about money. It's about fairness. It's about whether children get to eat or don't. About promises made and broken. I didn't come here to hurt anyone. I came here to help the people I love. The judge nodded slowly. Thank you, Ms. Brown. She sat down and breathed out a long, hard breath for the first time in years. She felt a little lighter. Throughout the courtroom, Robyn turned away, her hands fidgeting with the crushed tissue in her lap. Cody had still not glanced up. As Christine sat down, her words clung to the air like smoke after a blaze. The judge pushed his glasses back up the bridge of his nose, obviously sensing that the room hadn't yet breathed. It was time for the evidence. Christine's lawyer, Rachel Vance, a soothing but assertive presence, rose, walked up to the front, and pointed to the pile of binders on the table. Your Honor, she started, we present Exhibit F. These are a decade's worth of payment records, grocery bills, online transactions, itemized receipts, and home budgets, all organized and kept by the plaintiff. She activated a remote. Behind her, the courtroom screen flickered to life, displaying a gigantic spreadsheet. Between 2013 and 2021, Christine Brown contributed a monthly amount to a joint family fund, from $600 to $1,000, depending on the month. Those entries were detailed, confirmed, and in a number of instances, explicitly tagged as grocery contributions. The account that received them? Robyn Brown's. A gentle gasp circulated around the courtroom. Cody shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Rachel turned to a bar graph now on screen. Throughout the whole time frame, she said, there were about 128 grocery orders, monthly or bi-weekly. Of those, only 7 deliveries ever made it to Christine's house. She left that figure hanging. Point 7. Robyn inched forward to her lawyer and whispered urgently. Her attorney scribbled something on a pad, but didn't say anything out loud. Rachel clicked again. Now, pictures appeared. Side-by-side photos revealed Robyn's pantry. Rows of labeled bins, organic canned goods, vitamins, stacks of neatly arranged snacks. Compared to Christine's refrigerator, near emptied, a few eggs, half a stick of butter, a bottle of store-brand ketchup. More photos were shared. Robyn's deep freezer filled with meats, salmon, frozen fruit, pre-cooked meals. Christine's freezer contained only freezer-burned chicken legs and a bag of frozen vegetables thrown into a grocery bag. A mess. Brown, Rachel appealed to Christine. Can you verify the genuineness of these photographs? Christine nodded. I took them both on the same day. Point 2 houses, same grocery fund, but my fridge never showed my bank transfers. Hers did. Rachel turned to face the jury. This has nothing to do with jealousy. It's about fairness. Christine invested in a common system she was promised was fair, but what she actually did, paid for another woman's full pantry, while her own kids speculated about why their meals were getting smaller, why they had to skimp on milk. A juror dabbed at their eyes. Rachel went on. Exhibit B. Christine's PayPal and Venmo transaction history. Shown today were more than 100 individual transactions marked as either household fund or grocery, all of which were deposited into Robyn's accounts. The amounts checked out, the receipts confirmed, but the addresses of delivery? She hesitated, then drove home the point. Each one of those deliveries, almost all of them, was delivered to one place. She clicked again, and a delivery map flashed up, peppered with location pins. 95% were brought right to Robyn's house, a handful to Meri or Janelle, less than 5% to Christine. Cody leaned back in his chair and sighed loudly. At last Robyn spoke. Her voice was gentle, but full of feeling. That I had the youngest children, she explained. That's why I ordered extra. They were at school. They needed lunch boxes. I wasn't stockpiling anything. Christine just makes it a drama. Rachel walked up to her slowly. So, she said, you're telling me you used a collective fund to buy groceries for your kids in particular? Robyn paused. Well, I mean, I wasn't exactly keeping track. But you were the one organizing the orders? Rachel asked. You made the calls, coordinated the schedules, coordinated the deliveries? Robyn nodded fractionally. And then 10 years later, Rachel went on, Christine, who invested almost half the cash, got only 7 grocery deliveries. Robyn didn't respond. Rachel then put on a recording, a 2019 audio clip. Christine's voice. Hey, I saw the Costco order. Was any of that for our house? Robyn's voice. No, sorry, I had to get extra this week. The kids are devouring snacks. I'll get you something next time though. Christine, it's been 5 months since we've received anything. Robyn, yeah, I know, but this order was sort of necessary. The courtroom was silent as that final sentence was replayed. Yeah, I know, but this order was kind of necessary. Christine got up once more, holding a printed copy of a screenshot of a text conversation. She held it out for the courtroom to see. It showed Christine asking her grocery share on a Wednesday. Robyn's response. Order already submitted. Sorry, let's circle back next cycle. Christine's voice broke. There was no next cycle. She said, I began baking my own bread. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't afford to buy a loaf and send my kids to school with fresh fruit. Rachel addressed the jury for a final time. This is not a hot-headed outburst, she stated. This is deliberate, calculated exploitation. The family fund was based on one thing: trust. Trust that Robyn would share resources equally. But she didn't. And when Christine challenged her, she was given excuses. Christine's attorney glided slowly past the jury box. Robyn had earned the trust of the family. She'd been entrusted with financial control. And she abused both. She fed almond-crusted chicken to her children and blended smoothies. Christine was cutting mold from cheese and saying to hers, just a few more days until payday. Robyn suddenly stood up. I was doing my best, she stated. The judge raised an eyebrow. Sit down, Mrs. Brown. Your turn will come. He looked at Christine's kids sitting in the second row. They were quiet, but their expressions were what words could not say. Silent grief, knowing looks. Memories of meager meals and hidden injustices. Rachel's tone was gentle now, but firm. This is not about the food itself. It's about what the food stood for. Love. Fairness, safety, dignity. And for years those things were withheld from half of this family, while the other half had seconds. Christine sat, her eyes fixed on the jury. She didn't weep. She didn't have to. The evidence had said what silence could never say, what was true. And now, not only the courtroom, but the world heard it. Spreadsheets and financial reports had already rattled the room. Christine's calm but burning testimony had left its impression. The burden of 10 years of silent betrayal had fallen on all of them. But no one was ready for what followed. The judge cleared his throat. The court will now hear from the plaintiff's next witness, Miss Robyn Brown. A low ripple of murmurs swept across the gallery. Storm before an impending storm. Gwendolyn stood up slowly from her chair and walked to the stand. Gray blazer, black jeans, and jewelry, no makeup. Plain face, but strength behind it. Christine gazed at her daughter with loving pride. But Gwendolyn didn't look at her. Her eyes were already on Robyn. Rachel was sworn in before she approached. Gwendolyn, tell us your relationship to the plaintiff. I'm her daughter, she said firmly. Point one of Christine Brown's 6 children. And you're 23, right? While your mom was contributing to the grocery budget, were you residing in her home? Yes, from youth until college breaks. And throughout that period, Rachel asked, did you ever notice anything out of the ordinary about the food in your home? Gwendolyn emitted a dry laugh. Not of humor, but fatigue. Yeah, I noticed. We didn't have any. Soft laughter spread across the courtroom. The judge even permitted a fleeting smile before assuming his serious stance again. Gwendolyn stretched forward. Her voice was firm, but underscored with something more profound. Not merely hurt, betrayal. I just figured we were poor. Supper was typically what could be stretched. Rice, frozen corn, peanut butter on toast. That was a typical evening. But then I'd stay over at Robyn's house, and it seemed like Costco had blown up in her kitchen. Rachel furrowed an eyebrow. Can you explain? Gwen nodded. She had it all. Name brands. Organic cereal. Yogurt. Juice boxes. Lunchables. Rotisserie chicken. Snacks piled like a convenience store. Frozen meals. Everything. Her pantry was full, like she was catering to a family of 20. The courtroom fell silent. And did you know that your mom was supplementing that same grocery budget? Gwendolyn's face hardened. She led me to the transfers every month. I looked at one for $800 marked grocery share. But we never received anything out of that order. Not one box. She cast a fleeting glance at Robyn. She once said to me, there wasn't enough to go around this time. But somehow there was always enough for her house. Rachel cocked her head. Did you ever speak directly to Robyn? Gwen hesitated, then spoke. Yet I did. I was about 17. After babysitting, I had asked if I could take some snacks home. She imitated the chilly response. Those are for my kids. The room began to explode. Gasps spread like fire. Christine looked down, biting her lip, stifling her tears. Rachel's voice gentled. And when you told your mother, she said it was all right. Said we had enough. Gwendolyn blinked furiously, but we didn't. And she knew it. She just didn't want to cause a fight. She hoped being nice would make things different. Rachel projected a screenshot. A text conversation between mother and daughter. Gwen, Mom, we need more food. I'm sick of leftovers from 3 days ago.
Christine, I know.
I'm sorry, I already sent money to Robyn. I'll try again next week. Rachel addressed the jury. Even the children of Christine witnessed the unfairness. This was no secret. It was endured in silence, far too long. Then came the turning point that shifted the mood in the room. Gwendolyn, the attorney, asked hesitantly, "Did you ever see Robyn deliberately omit your family from a grocery order?" Gwen nodded. Yes.
Once.
I'll never forget IT. IT was about Thanksgiving 2018. Robyn was ordering a gigantic holiday grocery order. I was there, sitting in on babysitting. I listened in on her conversation on the phone with the store. What was she getting? 2 turkeys, 2 hams, several cases of soda, 8 pies, 20 pounds of mashed potatoes, stuffing, gravy, sparkling cider. The whole 9 yards. Rachel leaned in. And did any of that get shipped to your mom's place? Gwendolyn didn't bat an eye. No. We had slices of turkey lunch meat that year. Again, the room erupted with shocked gasps. And when you asked Robyn, "Isn't your mom sponsoring this year?" Rachel encouraged. Gwen nodded, her tone flat but weighty. She just said, "Your mom's not sponsoring this year." She pulled in a deep breath, but my mom had put money toward the potluck. In fact, she even sent extra, thinking Robyn might be overwhelmed. But she wasn't. She wasn't overwhelmed. She was selfish. Robyn leapt to her feet. "I did the best I could. I never meant to hurt anybody." The judge brought his gavel down once, hard and metallic. "One more interruption, Mrs. Brown, and I will be forced to hold you in contempt." Robyn slumped back down. Her face burned red, eyes welling with tears. Gwen looked at her, then away. "I don't hate her," Gwen said softly. "I just wish she would respect us." And then the lawyer's last question. "If you could tell Robyn one thing in this courtroom, what would it be?" Gwendolyn paused, swallowing. "I tell you. You made us feel like second-class kids. You used money that was supposed to go to all of us and spent it only on your kids. I know what you did. My brothers and sisters know.
And one day,
so will yours. And when they say to you, 'Why?' I hope you can answer." A heavy silence ensued, raw and uncut. The jury remained still, visibly shaken. Robyn did not meet Gwen's gaze. Christine quietly cried into a handkerchief. Heartbreak and anguish all knotted up. As Gwen left the witness stand, no one applauded. Only compassion. Even the gallery members who had previously questioned Christine had on their faces now a look of quiet acquiescence. The reality no longer resided in spreadsheets and bank accounts only. Now it had a name, a voice, and a daughter still attempting to fix the damage inflicted on her family. The judge recessed the court for lunch. The courthouse entrance. Reporters congregated. Gwen offered a quick but impactful statement. "I did not take this job to punish anyone. I took it to tell the truth. My mom gave everything and was treated like nothing. I couldn't remain quiet about that any longer." Her words rang out louder than any news headline inside. Robyn sat in shock, still, because she knew what was going to follow. The facts were irreproachable. The testimonies coincided. And Christine, she was driven no longer alone. When court resumed, the mood had changed. Gwendolyn's words still clung heavy in the air. But Christine's attorneys weren't finished, not by a long way. As the judge came back to the bench and the courtroom fell silent once more, Rachel Vance stood again. This time, her hand clutched a manila folder like it held a live bomb. "Your Honor," she asserted, "we now introduce what is perhaps the most incriminating piece of evidence in this whole case. Exhibit C." She walked towards the screen. The projector flickered on the screen. A document scanned. A typed formal agreement dated May 2nd, 2013, with 4 signatures: Meri Brown, Janelle Brown, Christine Brown, and Robyn Brown. Rachel addressed the jury. "Here is the original family grocery plan signed by the Brown wives when they established their budget. It specifies how money was to be paid each month, how the stores were to be shopped, and most importantly, how the food was to be divided." She focused on one particular section now circled in red. Clause 5. She read, "Funds will be collected every month. The designated household grocery coordinator, Robyn Brown, will see that there is equal allocation of provisions and essentials according to the number of children in the household. All the children will be of equal importance irrespective of which wife is their natural mother. There it was, in black and white, signed by Robyn at the bottom. Rachel didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. The courtroom rested in silent shock. Christine stared at the screen. Cody, sitting behind Robyn, massaged his temples. Robyn herself had paled, not merely upset, but visibly vulnerable. The judge looked over the top of his glasses. This contract, was it signed of her own free will? Rachel nodded. Yes, Your Honor. And there's also testimony validating that the Browns had a family meeting prior to this. Robyn was picked to be in charge of groceries because she had more time and was already doing most of the online shopping for the group. Christine consented to that arrangement, believing that equity would ensue. Rachel touched the screen once more, but in fact, contrary to the assurance of this contract, the defendant diverted more than 70% of grocery orders to her own residence over a period of 10 years. She started walking slowly. This wasn't favoritism. It was breach of contract, breach of trust, and breach of family. Then Rachel showed a video clip of a 2015 episode of Sister Wives. The courtroom leaned towards the screen, eye on the video. Robyn and Christine were in the kitchen. Robyn smiled and said, "We've all agreed. I'll do the grocery ordering since I have the time, don't worry. I'll make sure everyone's taken care of." The video stopped, and the quiet came back, this time as oppressive as ever. Rachel turned to Robyn. "You looked into that camera and gave your word," she said quietly. "And then you broke it." Robyn's attorney instantly objected. "Emotional manipulation, Your Honor." But the judge nodded his head, overruled. "Miss Brown, you may respond." Robyn rose from her seat, her body shaking. "I didn't keep track." She agreed, her voice reed thin, uncertain. "Initially, I did," Robyn replied, "but it all ended up spiraling out of control. I had too much on my plate, between the kids, the stress, and the show." Rachel interrupted her. "So your defense is you forgot to feed half the family?" "No," Robyn cried out. "I never intended to hurt anyone. I assumed that Christine would say something if something was amiss. I did." Christine whispered from her seat. "You just didn't listen." Rachel clicked to the next slide, a calendar. All of the months from 2013 to 2021 were outlined. Christine's confirmed contributions were marked in red. Green indicated the confirmed deliveries to Robyn's doorstep. Yellow indicated the ones she'd sent to Christine. The screen was predominantly green and yellow. Just 7 small red dots. Rachel faced the jury again. This was not some loose verbal agreement. It was a formal, signed accord to guarantee no child would be left out. IT represented trust, equity, and mutual obligation. And Robyn Brown had broken every aspect of it. The plaintiff wasn't merely seeking repayment of misspent money, but also for the psychological damage inflicted by years of abuse and manipulation under a system that was supposed to be equitable. The defense attorney stood up at last. "Your Honor, respectfully, this was a spiritual family arrangement, not a legal agreement. My client didn't possess legal training. She did her best in chaotic circumstances." The judge hunched forward. "Possibly, but when a person signs something related to money and interdependence, those signatures do mean something." The defense attorney returned to the bench, visibly deflated. And then came the blow. Rachel held up a final exhibit. This email, she said, was sent by Robyn to Christine in 2016. She read from it aloud. "Hi Christine, heads up. I needed to use this month's grocery fund for some additional homeschooling materials and bulk pantry foods. I'll catch up with your house on the next cycle." Rachel gazed up at her. That next cycle never materialized. "It's been 8 years. Christine gazed down, hands neatly resting in her lap. Face serene, but eyes glistening with tears. The jury was clearly moved. A woman with glasses wrote frantically on her notebook. A man sitting next to her shook his head. Rachel closed the folder softly. "I don't think Robyn Brown is an evil person, but I do think she abused trust, for convenience, for favoritism, for control, and my client, a mother who sacrificed everything, paid the price." Court adjourned for the day. Reporters converged outside. Headlines were already being drawn up, signed and ignored. Christine's evidence demolishes Robyn's case. Courtroom bombshell. Robyn Brown only fed her own children. Cody silenced as Christine tells the truth. Christine walked by Robyn without saying a word. No look, no nod. Nothing. And for the first time in years, Christine didn't feel like the wife in the background, forgotten. She was center stage, speaking the truth nobody else had the courage to. The courtroom had never been more silent. The world had waited 4 days to see Christine Brown strip it all down. 10 years of silence, receipts, broken vows, and open sores. The gallery had wept with her. The jury had read the documents. Online viewers, on forums, on TikTok, on YouTube, exploded in support and outrage. Everything now came down to this moment. The jury entered, slow and somber, men and women young and old, each with solemnity written across their faces. Christine sat still at her table, fists closed, eyes straight ahead. She did not glance at Robyn.
She didn't have to.
Robyn slumped forward, holding a tissue, her lawyer whispering something in her ear that she wasn't quite hearing. Cody sat behind them, folded arms, clenched jaw. His silence had endured throughout the entire trial. No public remark, no comment, not even a whisper to Christine. The judge glanced at the foreperson, a woman in a blue blazer, her fingers shaking slightly as she stood. Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict? He asked. We have, Your Honor. She held out an envelope. Slowly, the judge opened it, pushed up his glasses, and read it twice before glancing up. I end the case of Brown versus Brown. Domestic agreement breach, financial abuse, and emotional damage. We rule in favor of plaintiff Christine Brown. Gasps filled the room, followed by an awestruck silence. Christine's lips opened in shock, but she couldn't produce a sound. She blinked, tears welling up in her eyes that refused to fall. The judge went on. We grant damages of $32,000 for stolen household money. We also acknowledge the emotional damage incurred by Christine Brown and her dependent because of the violated agreement. Then he turned his gaze directly to Robyn. Mrs. Brown, the judge said, based on the jury's recommendation, you are required to submit a formal written apology within 30 days and attend a follow-up hearing to finalize the damages schedule. Christine didn't gloat. She didn't even smile. She simply closed her eyes and exhaled, like someone who had finally surfaced after being submerged for decades. Her attorney put a gentle hand on her shoulder. You did it, she said in a whisper. You spoke your truth. Did I end the background? Gwen hid her face in her hands and wept. Michael T. leaned over, clutching her hand in silent solidarity. Robyn, looking distinctly pale now and wide-eyed, stood slowly to speak. Her voice shook. I didn't want this to happen. I was just trying to do the best that I could. The judge held his ground. Intent doesn't erase consequence, Mrs. Brown. You signed a binding contract, and you violated it. The court has spoken. Robyn went back to her seat, her head in her hands. Cody hunched over toward her, not in sympathy, but in anger. He spoke softly, so that only the closest could hear. You could have rectified this years ago. Outside, courthouse steps became a media circus. Reporters surged, microphones pushed forward, flashes going off, boom mics swooshing over heads. Christine emerged slowly, accompanied by her daughters. She wasn't weeping. She stood upright, radiating in calm victory. Moving to the microphones, she paused for the throng to quiet down. I did not come here to hurt anyone, she declared. Her voice was strong. I came to speak for my children, for the truth, and for every woman who's ever been asked to keep small by a system that's asked her to keep small. The reporters huddled in closer. For years, I worked and gave, thinking I was part of something special. I believed in fairness, in mutual responsibility. But that faith was shattered, not by one mistake, but by a chronic habit, a habit of taking more than your fair share, of being silent while others worked hard. Then Christine shifted marginally, staring directly into the camera, speaking now to the audience at home. To all the women who've ever sat back while someone else was served first, while you made the most of the least, I see you. I was you, and you deserve more. Robyn and Cody slipped out unnoticed from a side entrance across the way. Robyn ran to their SUV, sunglasses hiding her eyes, dodging every camera. Cody trailed behind, his jaw clenched, saying nothing. The harm was not just legal, it was public and permanent. That evening, headlines burst onto the web. Christine wins big. Court rules in her favor over grocery fund abuse. Robyn Brown misused shared funds. Court finds $32,000 verdict over grocery betrayal. Kody Brown silent as Courtroom exposes favoritism. Trial clips went viral. Gwen's testimony accumulated more than 3 million views in less than one day. Christine's post-verdict address was shared by empowerment accounts throughout TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Supporters referred to it as the day Christine took back her power. 2 weeks later, she shared a peaceful picture on Instagram. Her kids at a table for dinner, laughing and smiling, serving themselves food. The note was brief. This time, we ate first. Robyn's court-mandated apology letter was also released with a ruling. To Christine Brown and her children. It said, I regret the mismanagement of the family food budget and not being able to ensure fairness for all. I realize my actions harmed you, and I regret the unfairness and hurt my negligence brought about. I wish to restore trust and learn from this experience. Robyn Brown, but for others, particularly Christine's children, the apology came much too late. In the ensuing months, Christine started speaking out. She was a guest on podcasts, explaining the emotional labor of plural marriage. She spoke at a Salt Lake City women's rights panel. And she even started writing a book, not a tell-all, but a practical manual on financial fairness in shared households. Its working title, More Than Enough, a story of taking back what was mine. And as for the Brown family, the backlash was swift and profound. The trust between the other wives and Robyn totally fell apart. TLC suspended production permanently, and Kody Brown, once the star of a reality TV plural empire, was now just another guy who stood on the sidelines of injustice, quiet until it was too late. But Christine? She left that courtroom with something more than a legal victory. She left with something much, much stronger, her voice, and she was never letting it go again.